In the course of last week, the governor for the Central Bank of Kenya made a statement, and he said that they will have a consultative meeting with our commercial banks to inquire and see why our interest rate, actually the central bank rate being at 12%, at the same time our inflation being as low as 2.7%, why it's not translating into lower and affordable interest rates in the banking sector. Now you ask yourself, where do you fit in all this discussion? There is something quite interesting I want to show you. Come here. So look at this. Look at this. I was looking for this. Okay. When it comes to commercial banks, they are interested in making money. It's a business at the end of the day. So there is the element of deposit, savings, lending, and overdraft. Those are the four categorization of the kind of money that commercial banks handle. Now, you know deposits. You have your salary account, or you've made your business some money, you go deposit. When you deposit into that account, that money is put into use because the bank is in that business. Now, in the year 1994, the year that I was being born, in November, deposits were garnering an interest of 14.05%. Savings, if you have a savings account, it was garnering 12.4%, all right, on average. And lending, this money, because banks basically lend your deposits and savings, they were lending at 25.96%. And overdraft, if at all you are fulizering, back in the day, they were charging 26.98%. All right? That is 1994. In 2004, that figure dropped. Look at that drop. Of course, we know the 90s, what happened with the structural adjustment programs and whatnot. But in 2004, deposits were garnering an interest rate of 2.66%, savings at 1.3%. Lending, they were lending the money at 11.97%, overdraft, of course, 12.21%. Today, as we speak, the year is 2024. The latest data from the Central Bank of Kenya, September, deposits were garnering an interest of 11.24%, but savings were garnering an interest of 3.57%. But when you look at the lending rate, it was standing at 16.91% and overdraft 16.83%. So sometimes, first of all, this disconnect is bringing quite a concern for a lot of people, saying if you are actually lowering the rate of savings interest but raising the lending rate at 16.1%, what exactly is going on? But the bigger discussion, of course, touches on why there is no transmission. When policy is put, unfortunately, the transmission rate when the central bank is instituting policy is not effective. We are not, when CBR reduces, we are not seeing reduction when it comes to our loans interest charged by commercial banks. That disconnect. We'll be having that conversation later on with Stella Soke from SIB later on. My name is Noki Pimbo and welcome to the show. We start on a Milky Way where Kenya's dairy sector received a major boost today with the launch of the 2024 Cost of Milk Production Report. The report shows that despite challenges like high feed costs, dairy farming remains profitable, with farmers earning between 9 shillings and 80 cents and 13 shillings and 90 cents per litre. Now, Agriculture Cabinet Secretary Dr. Andrew Karanja reiterated the government's commitment to doubling milk production to 10 billion litres annually and increasing farmers' income through better genetics.
Country before the month of March of this year. So farmers, we have identified the sites where we will be distributing those coolers. Those will help the farmers to cool their milk and make sure that the wastage, post-harvest losses, milk, which the spoilage of milk is cut down. We are also saying we intervene in terms of having intervention to produce pasture. That also we are doing within this financial year.
As we are preparing ourselves for increased production, there's also increased demand and the consumption in the country. We are already, when you look at the infrastructure, the installed capacity, processing capacity has moved from 3.5 daily million to 5.2 million liters daily that we're able to handle. We're even not utilizing the installed capacity. We're at 45% of installed capacity, meaning the infrastructure in place can handle high volumes of milk. Even if we double production, we're still able to handle it. When you look at even what we are processing, as only 85% going to UHT and process.
Now let's head to Kisumu County, where farmers have discovered a sustainable and affordable solution to rising livestock feed costs. Over 50 farmers recently completed an intensive training on black soldier fly farming, that is BSF farming, an innovative approach to tackling high production costs and promoting eco-friendly agriculture. Take a look.
The black soldier fly, or BSF, is a small insect whose larvae are protein-rich and ideal for livestock feed. These larvae thrive on organic waste, turning it into nutrient-rich feed and produce frass, a natural organic fertilizer that restores soil health and boosts productivity.
We hope of contributing to meeting, if not 50%, to about 70% of their feed supply to the livestock. That is one aspect of it. We hope that with increased production of larvae to feeding livestock, including piggery and poultry and fish farming, we hope to contribute significantly in protein supply to the population. And this will also help to contribute in addressing the malnutrition gap.
Initially misunderstood, BSF is now being embraced by farmers like Phoebe Athiambo, who overcame their initial fears to recognize its benefits.
The black soldier flies were scaring me. In fact, I was afraid of the larvae. I couldn't even touch them. But nowadays, I have found it is beneficial. I could touch them. I'm giving my chicken the feeds. I'm so happy with the larvae because they are friendly. I can touch them. I can even give my chicken. The chicken are eating it. It's nutritive, I say, because you can see they are eating it at a high speed. But now I'm controlling. After the training, now I've known how to measure the scale, the ratios I'm supposed to give them. Because when I give excess, I hear that they'll be so fat that they couldn't even lay eggs again.
BSF farming is particularly appealing to youth and women due to its minimal space and budget requirements. The benefits of BSF extend beyond livestock. Frass enhances soil quality, improves water retention, and fosters resilient crops.
And this is virtually what we aim at doing that. So with the use of the black soldier fly black byproduct, including the liquid, which will be used in biopesticides production, we are aiming at one, reducing pesticides contamination, which comes from a result of high pesticides use. We are also helping to reduce water pollution, which comes from the use of excessive irregular use of fertilizer materials. We are also hoping of helping to improve the organic matter content of the soil, which fertilizer, one way the other, is not able to do significantly.
This transformative initiative is part of the CGAIR Nature Positive Solutions, aiming to make agriculture a positive contributor to nature. As more farmers in Kenya adopt BSF farming, the future of sustainable agriculture shines brighter. For KTN, I'm Paul Thiongo.
Definitely, and some people in a spiritual aspect, BSF is also Bible study fellowship, but that's a story for another day. Let's move on to matters MSMEs, while with access to finance remaining a major barrier hindering growth for small businesses. Despite its pivotal role in creating employment in the country, now the Kenya Institute of Business Training and the Japan International Cooperation Agency, that is JICA, have partnered to improve the efficiency and sustainability of Kenyan SMEs through training. This is said to help enterprises unlock opportunities within the sector.
In this short period of time, we've managed to increase the number of employees by 3. And we've also been able, as a management, to understand clearly our financial system. And also with regards to the KPIs, that the quality and productivity improvement, we've created sufficient space.
We used to struggle getting the finance, of course, getting from the banks, mainstream banks, the rates are quite high. but with assistance from the government, like institutions like KIE, there are people who can guide you, and not only just to get the money, but how to utilize the fund.
More than 1,900 training was provided, and more than 700 company has been already visited by the consultant people by the project periods. We are really proud of this.
We empower people who can also train for us. It's part of the sustainability that we want to engage beginning next year. In fact, already we've done a communication to the TVETs, technical and vocational educational training centers, so that we can be able now to embrace.
We have been able to improve the businesses in terms of efficiency, in terms of reducing wastage, and in terms of quality improvement. The enterprises can now be able to compete effectively in their products, not only in Kenya, but also beyond the borders.
Now, as the Bamboo Cement Takeover Tech Shop, workers from Savannah Company are demanding that they be paid all their unpaid dues before the sale takes place. This even as it emerges that time is ticking for Bamboo shareholders Cement actually to see if the Tanzanian conglomerate Amson Group will raise its bid to take over the company after its bid was actually surpassed by rival Savannah Clinker.
Ningeomba serikali iangaliange makampuni kama hizi ambapo mainvestors wakikuja kufungua kuwe kuna ile mikakati wanaeka so that ikifika kampuni kama ni kuanguka imeanguka wa make sure mfanyakazi amelipwa ile pesa yake sababu ashafanya kazi tayari. Na kuna fununu tunapata kwamba hii mdosi mwenye alikuwa hapa Savannah tunasikia ni kama anataka kununua tena Pambuli. So tungeomba serikali iangalie hiyo maneno sana. Isikue tena ile shida watu wenye tulipitia hapa Savannah, wale wenye wako pale Pambuli pia wataenda kupitia.
Wakati ilianguka ilikatisha maneno mingi sana. Alafu upande wa kifedha ikawa chini, maisha ikawa ngumu, kulipa nyumba ni shida. Sasa kitu ile ningeomba kama serikali ingeweza kuingilia kati, isuie maneno kama hayo, ingeweza kusaidia.
Na kila kitu kaenda chini, nyumba tukafungiwa, na inabidi sasa tutafute kibarua, na hiyo kibarua kupata ni ngumu. Na ingine sasa nimesikia hiyo kampuni, mwenye hiyo kampuni alifunga, anataka kununua Pambuli. Naomba kama mimi serikali isikie video yetu, watu kama hao wananunua kampuni kama hiyo, serikali iangalie.
Now let's go to school. At a time financial literacy is very crucial, we have Old Mutual and also M-Pesa Go, Old Mutual, and the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development have unveiled a financial literacy online toolkit targeting students in junior and senior school. The program includes interactive sessions and gamified digital experience that allows students to engage directly with the financial professionals, fostering a dynamic learning environment.
Unfortunately, financial literacy is not a subject that has been inculcated in our education system until very recently. Similarly, at home, through the research we've been doing, not much is talked about regarding financial literacy. KICD has access through the education system. Combining the three partners to drive this project through the financial literacy toolkit will drive and promote financial literacy.
But talking about debt management on its own is insufficient if we don't understand how we're creating the wealth and how we're able to multiply. So why am I excited about this? I'm super excited about this purely because it is transformational for all the youth that we have, and even for adults. It'll just help us to work and, play with our money a lot more effectively.
Definitely. On to our discussion today. Matters to do with interest rate. I told you these particular figures are very critical. We were looking at 10-year difference. This is almost 30 years ago and how that has changed. But CBK has a very interesting data set that is right there on their website if you want to check. And we'll go specifically to the year. The year is 20 have passed. Yeah, I know it's a little bit, it needs a lot of zooming right there. But you see, January, in that regard, we saw in January 2024, remember that classification that I showed you in regards to deposit, savings, lending, and overdraft. Where you need to pay attention is this savings and lending difference, which is quite crucial. But when you look at this figure so far, the year 2024, from January, you can see the deposit lending rate has actually, interest rate has been going up slightly. When you look at the lending rate, it's moved from around 15, it went to 16, it's still at 16. So as much as the central bank rate has been going down, this figure has almost remained constant. That is for interest rates for loans at the end of the day. And for deposits, that figure from January, 3.9%, it's actually been going up relatively. We can't say whether it is in close proximity in that regard. But with that said, we have one of our very own experts here from SIB Bank, Stella Sakwe. Thank you very much for making time to talk to us. CBK governor is concerned that they are reducing the central bank rate. They're saying inflation is going down, but our interest in our loans by commercial banks, actually, it's not going down as it should. Why this disconnect? Should there be sort of uniformity when one drops, the other drops, and vice versa?
Yes, in an efficient market, it will be automatic, all other factors constant, that when the central bank cuts the CBR, we have lower lending rates, and actually that's the policy intention by the CBK. But you find that we have very many other factors in consideration. We have, for example, the risk-based model, which has been adopted by most commercial banks by now. We have other charges when it comes to loans. We have government levies, we have legal fees, we have insurance. So when you compound all these other factors, it deters or hinders the automatic decline in loan rates when we have a CBK cut. So that is when you see the necessity of regulatory oversight, so that it bridges the gap between now the market behavior and the policy intentions of the central bank.
Definitely, and you guys call that transmission. When you set CBR, it needs to transmit and change the rates. But this discussion, because I know tomorrow is the State of the Nation address, so most likely they are not meeting tomorrow, most likely Friday. What do you anticipate from this meeting? Is everyone going to take a hard stance? Because you're saying, based on other factors, it seems banks have a difficulty in reducing lending rates in commensurate with the reduction of the CBR.
Well, it's a tough balance, in my view, in that as much as the Central Bank of Kenya wants to push down rates on lending, it will be a different story with banks, because we are dealing with a very subdued economic environment, very high non-performing loans. So it needs for the banks to be cautious and to lend cautiously, and lending cautiously involves the bit on risk-based modeling, whereby they have to consider your risk as a borrower and feed that into your rate. So it will be difficult for a bank to lend to a risky borrower at a lower rate as envisioned by the Central Bank of Kenya, and then this will automatically lead to maybe more non-performing loans for the bank in question. So I feel like it's a very tough balance, and it will require a very tactical way of doing so to make sure that we bring down rates and make sure that banks do not undergo or book so many non-performing loans. But then this will also be complemented by other factors like economic thriving of the economy, in that when we have a thriving economy, businesses are doing well, we have good demand from our consumers, then we will have less non-performing loans. So when the environment is less risky, the business environment, then it will be possible for banks now to downgrade or to have lower rates for their lending.
Okay. Yeah. And speaking of riskiness, I mean, it seems it favors the regulator at large because they are government at the end of the day. And we've been seeing banks being very cautious, lending to the government heavily. In fact, a lot of credit is going towards government borrowing, which is very interesting because you have to balance the interests of developing the economy vis-a-vis playing itself. And it seems to be where we have sort of at loggerheads between the commercial banking sector and what is going on in the economy. SMEs are saying we're not getting this money. Banks are giving money to the government is having nice returns. I mean, how do we get ourselves out from such? Is it a long-term project trying to create an enabling environment, which I know it's not as immediate as it should?
Yeah, so with regards to government securities, we are also seeing a very fast decline in the rates, and this has been entirely or largely because of the central bank rejecting expensive bids from banks. So the largest winners are not necessarily the CBK, but banks. They're the ones who are booking gains. But for the central bank, I feel like, again, it has different roles because the central bank is the regulator, and it regulates banks and wants to ensure that banks are thriving and the financial system is working. On the other hand, CBK is the fiscal agent who has to ensure that the government gets money in terms of borrowing or it achieves its borrowing target. So on one end, it has to ensure that we have money as a government, and on one end, it has to ensure that banks are thriving. So with regards to crowding out, because that's what you're referring to when you say that banks are lending more to the government and less to the SMEs, I think there's a brighter path now. We can see light at the end of the tunnel in that when rates go down on government securities, probably banks will lower their rates and now look for SMEs to lend to them. But looking at businesses right now, I was interacting with someone from the manufacturing sector, and he was saying that no business right now in the manufacturing sector would go to a bank to ask for money to borrow because of the rates. Because looking at their margins, and there is a lagging effect, for example, in the manufacturing sector, because maybe the items that they imported 3 months ago are still in stock, there's that lag. So probably what they imported was at a higher import cost, and then the margins will be lower. So going to a bank to ask for money with the very high rates means that their margins will go lower, or even the businesses will make losses. So there's that issue of banks lending cautiously, as well as businesses not going to banks to borrow money. So there's the issue of capital. And if we have lower lending, lower interest rates on government securities, then banks may be motivated to go to the private sector and try as much as possible to lend money to this sector, which may be having attractive returns as opposed to lending to the government.
It seems banks are between a rock and a hard place.
Yes.
Only time will tell how these navigate. Thank you very much, Stella.
Thank you.
All right. Stella Soke is actually from SIB, and she's telling us that only time can predict, but it seems the way things are, rates at government securities are going down, where banks have been lending so much. Now they have to come back home, qua ground, and lend to normal businesses. But the question is, businesses again in this environment, a little bit risky. So how do they navigate that? Quite an interesting discussion, even as we head towards the State of the Nation address, with some of these economical challenges are expected to be addressed by the President, of course, the National Assembly. But so we put a full stop to today's show. Thank you very much for joining with us over the past slightly around half an hour. My name is Noah Kipkimboy. Up next, we have KTN. Stay tuned. Thank you, Stella.